Okay, I think she will join us very soon. I can see Dorcas Vincent. Yeah, Dorcas. Dorcas Vincent. Yeah, Dorcas Vincent. Okay. Yeah, Dorcas, please. Good. Dorcas, I can see your hand up. Yes, kindly unmute yourself and just say hi to us so we can be sure your microphone and everything is working before we kickstart. Dorcas? Okay, I think Dorcas might have a problem there. So let me go to Daniel. Daniel? Yeah, we just having uh, a warm-up for this session. And so just so we want to know if your microphones and systems are fully set. When I mention your name, you just unmute yourself and then just say hi to us, just so we can be sure you have a stable network one, and also you have your systems working as well. All right, great. So Daniel, I can see your hand up. Yeah, you can unmute yourself, Daniel, and then say hi to us. All right, great.
Okay, thank you. I actually wanted to say I can't unmute myself. Only you can unmute me.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Looking forward to the session. I think my settings are well and good
Great.
and geared up for the session. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Omotola, yes, you can unmute yourself, Omotola. You can unmute yourself now, Omotola.
I'm trying to unmute myself. It's not working.
We can hear you, Omotola. We can
Oh,
hear
you can
you.
hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, good evening. Yeah.
Good evening, and great to have you.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Madam Dorcas, you can unmute yourself. Madam Dorcas? Yeah.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening,
Actually,
Madam
the
Dorcas.
settings, the settings weren't permitting participants to speak before now. But I think that has
Please.
been fixed.
Yes, please. So,
Mm.
yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time as well. All right. So, Jonah, you can unmute yourself now. Jonah?
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Jonah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. All right.
Okay,
How are you
I said
doing?
good evening. I'm good. How are you too?
I'm doing fine, sir.
Okay, happy to be here.
Great to have you too as well. All right. Thank you very much. Madam Bridget. Bridget?
Oh, yes. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you?
I'm doing fine. Great.
Okay.
Nice to have you.
It's a pleasure to be
A
here.
pleasure. Right. Thank you. Two for me. Yeah, two for me. My all-time two for me. Two for me. How are you doing? You can meet yourself now.
Good evening. Sorry,
Good
I'm
evening.
on motion. I just closed for work. Good
You just
evening.
close there. All right.
Good to be here again. I really miss everybody. I miss the session. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I'm excited for today's session.
All right, two for me. Nice hearing from
All
you
right.
again. You are
Thank
really
you.
missed.
Yeah, I used to.
All right. Okay, who haven't I called? Okay, I've called. Yeah, I've called. All right, great. And so I want to welcome you all to today's session. And just as you know, we are in the third part of the journey to become advocates for Africa dyslexia. And I'm so proud that throughout our journey, you have been very supportive, very consistent, and very hardworking. And I want to commend all of you for the good work you are doing for yourselves. And then also, I would also want to urge our participants, right? Those who you know as a friend, okay? Because you're supposed to be around 24 or something, yeah. So please do well to If you have a friend or you know a friend who is part and is missing lectures, please let them be aware that we are taking attendance for every session we do. All right, so we'll do a bit recap of what we have done in the past before I introduce to you the wonderful speaker for this particular session. If you're a Muslim here, I want to wish you happy Ramadan. Yes, and if you're if you're a Christian here, I want to say happy Easter to you because we are all in the Lent season. Yeah, so just as we do it. Right. So a quick recap of what we did towards during the past sessions, that is for Module 1 and Module 2. For Module 1, we were able to discuss and also, have a welcome session with a wonderful personality who was in the person of Michelle. Yeah, Michelle Sakandi was able to help us with our orientation and fellowship. Yeah, and what we need to know to become an advocate for Africa dyslexia. And so second model was taken by Madam Esther Wamai. Yeah, she took us through neurodiversity of learning differences. And today we are going to have a wonderful discussion. Now, I told you that today is going to be a wonderful one because the one to deliver today's session is a wonderful personality. In fact, she is an advocate, all right? So she, let's say, years past, she was just like us, or she was just like you, all right, aspiring to be an advocate, and now she is a fully active advocate. And in fact, she is climbing the ladder when it comes to dyslexia assessment, dyslexia education, dyslexia training, dyslexia learning. She is actually climbing the ladder. A few weeks or few months from now, she's going to have a level 7 assessor certification. I can't wait to introduce her to you, but then take a time. Yeah. I know you are all happy to meet her. Yeah. She's here with us. Yeah, feel free to use the icons. Feel free. Yeah. Okay. And so just before we start, okay, I just wanted to kill some time so that our other friends can also join. So I can see Onyenkeru is joining us. Onyenkeru, you are highly welcome. I can see Kwalawoli Aiti. Yeah, you are all highly welcome to today's session. Great. Okay, so I told you our host, our speaker for today is going to have some time with us and talk to us more about her journey through Africa dyslexia and then where she has gotten to and then what she's doing, okay, before she even talks more on her presentation for today's model. All right, so I would want to introduce to us our speaker for today. Yes, we also have all-time, yes, sing that ring for me, right? We have our all-time wonderful personality here, the CEO, the founder and CEO of Africa Dyslexia Organization, Madam Rosa. Yeah, she's here with us. Yeah. Give it up for her. How are you doing, Mom? We want to hear from you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm excited for today, and I heard you giving Fati all the accolades, and I was like, yes, she deserves it. I remember like 2 years ago, that was 2024, and it was just like this when Fati is coming into trainings all the time. And today, she's not just an advocate, but she's somebody who has invested in herself and has become a certified dyslexia specialist. And it tells, I don't want to take her story from her. I'm sure she will chip that in while she's training. Just motivate some of us that for when, and Fati and I talk a lot, and just for her to sharing some of the experiences as to I was coming into the and she tells you even how she got into the advocacy program. It's so funny because it's a friend who saw it and drew you her attention, and she was like, oh, let me just go and listen to what this is about. And it has turned into another career pathway for her. And I just can't wait to see the impact she'll make, but also the impact she'll make for her own self as a person. So, Fati, thank you so much for honoring us today. And I'm so proud to see our fruits from 2 years ago being a specialist and a trainer on this cohort. Thank you. David, you as well. Of course, you are fantastic since 2024. Your mate is Fati, so you guys are you just
My
make
way
me
to
yeah, you make me happy. Thank you.
Right. So thank you very much, Mom. Thank you very much for that welcoming voice. I mean, yeah, she's the woman I love so much. Yes, she's doing a lot for us, and she's doing a lot in the space of dyslexia. And I mean, I will all the time praise her wherever I find myself. All right. So I know, Fati, your time is not up yet. All right. Yes, but then because we want you to run our aspiring advocates through your journey of becoming who you are today, I will want to introduce you now, okay, so that you can use some time to run us through your journey before you start your presentation, all right? Great. So for today's session, we have a wonderful personality who is in the person of Madam Fati Siddique. Yeah. Now, Madam Fati Siddique is a dyslexia and specific learning difficulties, that is SpLD specialist, advocate and exam arrangement assessor, working across United Arab Emirates and Ghana, and currently completing her level 7. Now, this part is where I love the most. Is currently completing her level 7 dyslexia assessor certification. Fati works with learners, families, and educators to identify barriers to learning and advocate for strength-based inclusive support for students with additional learning needs, particularly dyslexia and dyscalculia, driven by compassion and a deep understanding of neurodiversity through her work with schools and communities. Fati promotes inclusive neurodiversity affirming practice that improves access to outcomes for learners with diverse needs. She believes that every child can learn with the right support. Our wonderful audience, I present to you Madam Fati. Madam Fati, how are you doing?
Hi, David. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, madam, we can hear you. Oh, feel free to use the icons to give her applaud. I mean, she deserves every voice you hear today. She deserves it. I mean, so give her a wonderful applause. I mean, yeah. Let me see the icon flying. Yeah, let me see the icons flying. Great. All right. So, Madam Fati, please do us the honor to run us through, I mean, how you became an advocate, where you saw the advert, how you wanted to be part of ADO, your journey with ADO, who led you to ADO, and who you are today and what you have become, right? Yeah, you have the floor now, ma'am.
It's interesting because if someone had told me 2 years ago that I would be here, I would have said no, because as Rosalind know, even though I like to talk, I don't like to talk, if that makes sense, in public. So she knows that. But really, like, this journey, it's been an interesting journey for me. So I remember when I'm currently based in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, where I've worked as inclusion teacher, I've worked as head of inclusion, and now I'm back as inclusion specialist teacher and also specific learning difficulty specialist within my context. And I remember even my journey into special needs started when I moved from Ghana to the UAE. Most of my classmates will tell you I was training to be a chartered accountant with ACCA UK. So that's another story. But then when I came here, circumstance changed and I found myself within the educational system. So even though I was training and I did my postgraduate, my master's and everything in special needs, and then I was working with students with different learning needs, I found that like my interest or passion was more with kids who had like learning difficulties. So I worked with kids with autism, kids with all the different. I found that is what I enjoy. Like I enjoy when I work with kids who feels like they're not good with math, and then I work with them and they now see that, oh, I can learn math, or kids who are struggling with reading, and then they see that, oh, it's not as hard as I thought. So then one of my friends who she's now moved back to the States. She was a counselor here in the UAE, and then she knows how I'm into all these stuff. And then she just saw it and then said, I think I even applied maybe 2 days to the deadline or something. Like it was last minute application that I did, but I wasn't really expecting anything. Like I just said, she's like, yeah, I think this is something you'd be, and I'm like, oh, Africa, dyslexia, this is new. Let me just apply. So I did, and then after, I think they didn't even get back to us right on time. So I just moved on with my life, and then I got the email and like, oh, okay, they got back to me. But during that time also, I was head of inclusion in a private school. And one of the things that we've always struggled with getting parents on board, like acceptance. So I was also taking my psychometric testing training. And then when this dyslexia thing came up, I'm like, okay, this is interesting, because even going back to COVID, when I was working as inclusion teacher, I worked in one of the government schools here before moving to private, and we have kids who are in like high school who couldn't read. And during COVID, like we had to find our own resources to support these kids. But then I could see that they were making progress, even though like I wasn't really trained. So when we started this advocacy, it wasn't Natalia. I barely, like, I would never raise my hand. I can type, I would type, but if you don't if you don't call out my name, that Fati, okay, it's your time to talk. Trust me, I would not talk. And this story also is something that I shared. This is because of an experience that I had back in KNUST, where like now my people will tell you now my voice is loud, but I've always had a very like soft voice. So anytime I talk to people and they see me, they're like, you don't look like the way you sound. Like you sound like you're a very tiny person, but you're very tall and all that. So this lecturer made a comment, and then that really, like, it was intimidating. First year students, the only Muslim with hijab in the lecture hall, and then he makes a comment and everybody's laughing. That really, I don't know. Now thinking back, maybe I should have said something, but I don't think I was that confident to even like make a comment. So that was it. From that time, you barely see me talking like in a public space. Even if I had something to say, I'd rather just whisper it to the person next to me, or if it's typing, then I can do the type. But really, this advocacy, we started it, and then one of the sessions, I think it was the session where Rosalind, someone came and was really talking to her about her journey. She's also done the dyslexia specialist, and then Rosalind even followed up with sharing some resources. I'm sure Rosalind didn't think that I was going to take her on that. So I was like, okay, this is a new thing, but then it's exactly what I've always been passionate about. I know I enjoy working with kids with needs, but then those with these specific learning, probably because I've always been a very academically achieving person. So it was always interesting that I remember even back in secondary school when I was in boarding school, sometime during prep time, I'll gather all my peers and whatever the teacher had taught in the class, like I'll be the one teaching them. When I was in JHS, even in Ghana, like in the evening, some of my juniors will come to my house. And so this is something, like looking back, I feel like I've always been called to do that. And I always tell people that I'm passionate about this just for the impact. And I think that's what makes it even enjoyable for me. It's really, I always tell people, I'm like, I would probably have been bored if I was a chartered accountant right now, because it would just be me and my computers in the office. But right now, like, I have families that I've worked with who reach out to me because of you, this. So I feel like this is a job that even if I'm not paid to do it, like I'm happy to do it, because it's really not about the money or what it comes with, but it's really about the impact. So this would be my question to the advocate, like, why are you really wanting to be an advocate? So it's always the why, because trust me, the process, I messaged Rosalind, I told her when I met her in Ghana, I'm like, if someone had told me how intense it was going to be, I would probably not start it. But then it got to a point I had to sleep 2 a.m., sometimes 3 3 a.m. and then I'm like, oh, Fati, you've already paid for it. There's no turning back. You're almost there. So sometimes it's like you have to motivate yourself to go through it. Like nobody will be there. Like now I have people messaging me, oh, Fati, I want to do what you did. And I'm like, you guys are just seeing the Fati talking now. But if I'm to tell you all the sleepless nights that all the sleepless all the sleepless nights that I went through, maybe you may want to do it, but so I always tell them you have to really be passionate. I remember during one of the assessments, I had to record a video and I was busy teaching and talking to this kid only to finish and realize that the video did not record. I was just crying. And then I messaged my tutor. I'm like, the video does not record. What do I need to do? She's like, Fati, just calm down. You have to do it all over again. So these are the parts that people don't see. But again, what kept me going? It's because it's something I'm passionate about. Like it's something that I would call me day or night and I would be there to do it because it's just something that I'm passionate about. So this journey started 2 years ago. If someone had told me this is where it would take me to, I would have said no way. But I guess it's all the support from Rosalind and seeing something that we've never had in Africa and trying to be a part of something that even if we don't live to see where it takes to, like we would be happy knowing that we were part of something that drove a change within the African continent. So for me, I'm happy to be here, really, and I don't know, like, yeah. So all I will ask you is, why do you want to be an advocate? Because trust me, coming here 4 p.m. Ghana time or Nigeria time or wherever country you are, it's a commitment. So are you committed? So go back again. Why do you want to be? At the end, Rosalind will give you the certificate, but beyond that, would you be still committed? And this would be my question to you. David, if you leave me, I'll just keep talking.
Exactly. We would have to organize a podcast for you. So yeah, so that you can tell us the impact this particular journey in ADO has made in your life. But then before I leave you to have your presentation, I have this one question that I want to ask you so that on behalf of our advocates. Now, what I've realized is that most of the time, our advocates mostly would complain about the fact that they have other duties to perform. Now, I want to ask you, how were you able to balance your personal interest, your work, and also the advocacy program? That will be the final question. Then you can have the floor to begin your presentation.
Trust me, it's hard. And this is why I keep saying it goes back to your why. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, 2 teenagers. My youngest is 10 years old. I live in a country where I don't have any support system. Most of the time, my husband is off for work. So weekdays is just me and the kids. Having a full-time job, juggling all this. Is it easy? No, but is it worth it? Yes, it is. So if your why, and again, this is where, because if it is money, there's no money coming from anywhere. So you're going to stop. But if it's really something that it's within you that, yes, I'm committing to making that impact, it will keep. I always say, when it gets hard, just ask yourself, why did I start it? And if it's a good reason within you, like, it will keep you going and you wouldn't want to give up because you will want to make that impact. So for me, it's always the why I started this. That's what it will get hard. Trust me, it's not easy balancing it. But once you're committed to it and you know why you're doing it, that is what will be driving you towards your goal.
Right. I'm a proud coursemate of Fati. Trust me. She was she was my coursemate. Exactly. On the Africa Dyslexia Advocates Fellowship. Yeah. So Fati, you now have the floor. Kindly give to us what you have for us today.
Do you want to share since you
yes,
have?
Please. So at the background, Seth will do well to share with us your slides so you can have them. But then, advocates, can you show Fati some love? I mean, let me see some emojis of hands, some love in the air. All right. Yeah, this is a wonderful journey she's been through, and then trust me, we love her for who she is and for who she has become. Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Fati. All right. So, Seth, can you kindly have the slide presented to us so Fati can have the floor? Thank you very much, Seth. Yeah, Seth is our coordinator, our programs manager as well. So he's in the background working for us. Thank you very much, Seth. All right, Madam Fati, you have the floor now. Thank you.
So I know that this brings us to the heart of the advocacy, the understanding dyslexia, what it is, and then at your role as advocates, how would you go about your carrying of your duties? And can you move to the next slide? Let's look at. So this is just a summary of what we're doing today. So we'll explore some common misconceptions about dyslexia, look at the current research, because as advocates, we will want whatever information we're sharing to be based on evidence and not based on our own personal views. And then understand some key and cognitive perception about dyslexia, and then what are the boundaries and responsibilities you have as an advocate, and the use of ethical languages. So before we start, Seth, can we move on? Yeah, when I snap, it means let's go. Okay, just quick one into the chat. When you hear the word dyslexia, what's one word or phrase that comes to your mind? So this is just something just to get you thinking about your current perception about dyslexia. So feel free to type, or if you want to unmute yourself and talk also, that's fine. So when you hear the word dyslexia, what comes to your mind? There's no wrong or right answer. I just want to hear what you're thinking right now. Okay. Dysfunction, learning inability, okay, learning differently. I know there's a lot of us, so less language understanding challenges, okay. Text and language comprehension difficulties. Learning difficulties. Okay, that's interesting. So at least you guys have some context. So before we start, Seth, can you move to the next slide, please? So last week, I know you had a session on neurodiversity, and that was a really good transition into my session. So a quick one, just a summary of what you did last week was, so neurodiversity. So there's a neurodiversity umbrella, which just tells us that no two brains are the same. So it means even as we are all in this meeting, our brains function differently. And looking at the learning, the different areas, so you could see that there's a lot. And this list is not exhaustive. It means there's even more, but we can't just fit all of them here. So it means all the different brains, people learn differently. We have ADHD, dyslexia, OCD, autism, epilepsy, bipolar, Down syndrome. So all these differences fall under the neurodivergent umbrella. And all it means is that people whose brains differ from the majority. So the average people's brain might work differently, but there's a group of people whose brains work differently from the rest of us. And that doesn't make it that, like I said, deficit in its way. It just works differently. So this is just to set the scene for. So within the neurodiversity umbrella, there's dyslexia. So where does dyslexia fit in? So let's move to the next slide. Okay. So now that we've looked at the general umbrella for specific learning difficulties, for the neurodiversity, now we're looking at the specific, and this is where dyslexia comes in. So we have the specific learning differences, which is a range of difficulties that affect how information is processed and learned. So it could be literacy information, numeracy. So all this together is the specific learning differences. Within that umbrella, we have dyslexia, dyspraxia, or developmental coordination disorder. We have ADHD or ADD, dyscalculia, and then dysgraphia. So all these, even though they are within the neurodivergent umbrella, they have their own set of umbrella that's called specific learning differences. All this means is that it affects specific aspects of learning. So dyslexia is more generally focused on literacy, And then dyscalculia has to do with numeracy, dysgraphia has to do more with writing, dyspraxia more coordination and motor skills, and then ADHD. So dyslexia is a neurodevelopmental differences within the neurodiversity umbrella. And recognizing this does not diminish. So we just need to know, but beyond the knowing, what do we need to do? So this is just to set the context. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so why is this really important? Because sometimes I just get surprised because I'm like, for something that is so common, so in almost every classroom or even in almost every workplace, there's likely at least, this is the minimum, there's at least one person with dyslexia, whether they know it or they don't. And in some countries, they say 1 in 10 people have dyslexia. In some places, they say 1 in 5, 1 in 20. But this is not really the point. The point is, for something that is so prevalent, like it's so common, why are we not talking so much about it? We look at this graph, we have dyslexia, ADHD, autism, Tourette syndrome, and some different areas. And you can see that dyslexia seems to be the highest. So no, it's not uncommon, it's really common. And my question is, why are we not talking about? And this is one thing that I'm really excited about, this advocacy, because we are here talking about it, getting people to talk about it. When you go into your communities, you would be talking about it just to create the awareness and understanding so that we ensure that dyslexic children in schools, dyslexic people in the workplace receive the support that they need. So this is why we need to be talking about it, because it is that common. Yes, can we move to the next slide? Okay, so this is, why does this matter? So we've seen that it's common. So why is it really important that we're talking about? This is one of my students currently. So this kid is a 17-year-old kid in grade 9. As you can see, look at the handwriting. This is the kid taking notes in class. This is math class, what the child was supposed to write. And this took him more than the time that they were expected to take. So if everybody took 30 minutes, it took him more than an hour to be able to even copy that. This kid have been repeated multiple times in his primary school ages. And again, this is one question that people always ask, if holding kids back really helps. And my question would be, if holding kids helped this student at 17 in grade 9, which is equivalent to our JHS 3, wouldn't be still be struggling. So no, it's not about repeating the child, but it's about what? Giving the support. So this kid, he comes to class, he's constantly sleeping, he's always exhausted. And nobody has really taken the time to say, why is this happening to this kid? And I will be referring to this student just to see. So why is it really important? Because this kid, in the early years, instead of repeating him so many times, somebody could have said, oh, maybe there's a learning difficulty, and it's not necessarily about repeating him. But no, he was missed in the early years. And even at 17 in grade 9, he's still been missed, because nobody is really asking the question, why is he still struggling? Can we move to the next slide? Again, this is a very personal, something personal, because I know this person really personally. So this is someone, again, why does it matter that we're talking about this? So this gentleman is now 30 years. He struggled in school throughout. And for some of you who are familiar with, in the context of Ghana, when kids get to JHS 3, they are expected to write exams, which is the end of grade 9. He couldn't pass the exam, so he failed. And what happens? Just like most of the kids, once they fail, it means they can't go to high school. Most of them end up in the streets. And he was first incarcerated at age 15, right after failing his BEC, which is the basic examination certificates. He couldn't pass it. Why? Because he was struggling, but nobody paused to really ask the question, what support does this kid need? And he's been in and out of prison until he was age 28, where he finally got support. And within our African context, especially, the main thing that we hear a lot when we're talking about specific learning differences is the school to prison pipeline, which sadly our system of education in Africa just opens kids to that, because once you can't pass high school, you're doomed. And sadly, we don't have a lot of vocational training. We don't have options to give these students to be able to even find a way out. So if you were to ask this question, what question should we be asking about this person's experience in school? What are some of the things that you think would have been their experience when they were in school? Anybody has something to say? Do you think they enjoyed school every day? They enjoyed being in school without the support? So maybe something to think about. What is their school experience like? Seth, can you move to the next slide? Again, this is just to give you that, because sometimes we say, oh, dyslexia, its impact, and sometimes we feel like it's at a distance, but these are people who live with us within the society. So one of the things I ask, so why is it important when we miss the support, when we misidentify them in the early age? It has a cost. And sadly, within our context, most of these kids end up on the streets because there's nowhere else to be. They drop out of school, they end up in the streets, they engage in a lot of criminal activities. And where do they end up? They end up in the prison. And within our Ghanaian context, again, and I'm sure it's across most of the African countries, the way that the education system is set out. At every stage, you need to take an exam. If you don't pass that exams, you're doomed for life, unless you're lucky, if your parents are really ready to invest so much into you after using all words that you're just lazy, you're not working hard enough. So this kid is a typical example of when we missed early to provide the support, they end up within the prison system. And we all know, we can look back and remember kids that even within our society who are within the prison system that they're struggling because they were struggling in school and nobody really took time to ask themselves why. And sometimes even and that's one thing that's made it even interesting, because it's within my context here in this country, there are a lot of kids like that. But what's different? The difference is because the government is supportive. So I've had students who at the same age right now, they've been going in and out of prison. But what's different? When the kid is in prison, we are meant to send their work to them to do it in the prison system. Do we have that in any country in Africa where a child would be arrested at 15 and schools would be asked to still do online learning for these kids? No. So even though some of these opportunities may be somewhere in other countries, within our African context, no, we don't. So this is just to set the scene that dyslexia is not just a learning difficulty, but then the impact, it has real life consequences and impacts for people that we find within our communities. And that's one of the reasons that for me personally, like I'm really passionate about reducing this. We cannot stop it, but we can with this advocacy. With the more we talk about it, the more we let parents understand your child is not just lazy or not putting in effort, but all they need is support to be the best they can be. Can we move to the next slide? Again, studies have shown the school to prison pipeline is big thing. And even though in Africa, we don't have the numbers to show for it, we know if we were all to go to visit our prisons and do screening, most of these people will tell you their stories. They will tell you, I used to struggle in school. And most of the time the person is struggling. So they don't want, it may come off as they not wanting to learn. So they will try to be the class clown. So they will always get into trouble. Again, they end up, instead of the school being a system to support them to really be successful, they end up dropping out of school and then they end up on the streets they will not last on the street. So eventually they end up in the prison. So this is just to get you thinking that all this that we're talking about is not just some theory that we're coming out, like they have real life consequences. So whilst you're doing your advocacy, these are some of the things that you need to bear in mind, that what you're doing is really important and is going to change somebody's life because of what you're doing. Can we move to the next slide, please? So this then brings us to what is dyslexia? So this is just a brief. So recently, so for the past years, there have been different definitions and there've really not been an updated research. So the Delphi study, this was carried out just recently. It started 2 years ago. That's brought together different specialists. So we had specialist teachers, specialist assessors, we had parents, people with dyslexia themselves. And then they formed a panel, and then they were asked a series of questions. And the question that had 80% of people agreeing would make it to the next stage. So in the end, 42 of these statements were accepted, and that formed the basis of the Delphi study in the UK. But one interesting thing about this is the demography of the people within the research, which is something that I always find interesting, is that most of these people are from Western-based countries, and also from countries who only speak probably like one language. And the closest African country you can see here is Egypt. This was the only representation we had for this new definition. And again, I keep asking myself, why are we not represented? But it's a good start. Now we're talking about it. So maybe it's about time that we also have people who are really interested in looking at dyslexia within our continent and also coming up with our own data rather than relying more on other contexts that sometimes it doesn't really fit within we can bring it to our African context. But this is a good start, so we'll take it. So the Delphi definition is based on these research. So in the end, 42 of the statements were accepted, and this is what we're going to look at, what they came up with. Can we move to the next slide? Okay. So all these 42 statements that were put together, they grouped them and then they came out with 4 different areas. What are these areas? So they talk about the nature of dyslexia. So now it is undisputable. We now know that dyslexia is genetic. So it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means once a person is born with it, in the nature of it, because of it affects the processing of the brain, it doesn't go away. The person lives with it. So it's natural, genetic. So there's a genetic component to it. So if a child has dyslexia, which is the interesting bit, most of the time when kids get diagnosed, it gets parents to think about their own school experience. And then most of the time, 50% out of the chance, there's a likelihood that someone within the family, it could be a parent, an uncle, also had a history of dyslexia. But then the environmental influences, this is where the support comes in. So even though it's genetic, it affects every child differently. So say a child who's come from a family that is supportive, more understanding, is within a school system that is really supportive, starts supporting them from the early years, their experience will be significantly different from a child who comes from a family who gets beat up every day. He scored 0 on a spelling test. He doesn't get the support. So these are the environmental influence. So even though it's genetic, the way that it would affect everyone will be based on the kind of environment that you find yourself. And then the second thing they looked at was the manifestation. How does it show itself? So I know this is a long, but it's a set of processing difficulties. So now we know it has something to do with the way that the brain processes. This affects the acquisition of reading and spelling. And the most commonly observed cognitive impairment was phonological processing, whereby you show, for some of the kids, it's the way that they see or translate the letters that they see. So for someone, as soon as you see the word cat, you know it's made up of 3 letters and each letter has specific sound. For some kids with dyslexia, that automaticity is not there. It takes them a bit of time for their brain to be really able to understand that, but that's not in all cases. So some people with dyslexia may have that difficulty, but not all people with dyslexia. However, phonological difficulty does not, and this is one thing that we're finding out, it does not always, because for some kids, especially those who really get the intervention at the early stage, they are able to really deal with, like they are able to cope with the reading and the spelling bit is able to you don't usually see it because they've really gotten so much support in the early years. But then in terms of working memory, processing speed, and orthographic skills, that for some also this is where you would see it. So for some people with dyslexia, due to the support that they got, the reading and the spelling bit might not necessarily be obvious, but the working memory and the processing speed and the orthography, which we will look at later, would always be there. So the nature, we know how it manifests itself could be difficulties with reading or spelling, but it's not always the case. And then sometimes if we don't see that, then the processing is where we would see where the working memory and the processing speed is impacted. Can we move to the next slide? So how does this impact? So again, we've seen how it shows. So the impact is how do we see it? So again, it's not all people with dyslexia would have obvious literacy difficulties. It doesn't mean they are not. It just means that it impacts them differently. So for some people, some or all aspects of literacy attainment are weak. So even though it's not, for some it's so obvious, the struggles, the literacy, you see it. But for others, again, depending on the age and the type of support that they've gotten, that you will not be able to see it. But it would always, in relation to their peers, sometimes you will see that differences. And again, for some of them, going back to the processing, they would be able to complete the task, they would be able to do it, but because of the processing and working memory difficulty, it might take them more time. So we're seeing that most kids with dyslexia need more time to process, to complete their task. Not that they can't, they can, but because of the processing difficulty, they need that bit of extra time to do that. And it's also across all languages. So it's not just in English, it's impact. So if somebody has dyslexia and you trace back, the sad thing is we don't have, so if we look at all these assessments, and I know David mentioned that this is one area that I'm currently training in to do diagnostic assessments and all that. All the assessments are in English, and they were, the sample was against people or children in Western countries. So sometimes is it really representative of our African context and culture? So even though sometimes the English assessment might not give you enough, but when we go trace back to the other languages, you'd always see that processing difficulty. So even within the UAE context, sometimes teachers come to me and they're like, oh, this kid is slow, he's having difficulty, but we don't know if it's because English language, he's now learning the English language, or there's something. And the question I always tell them, go talk to the Arabic teacher, because if he's struggling and it's not just due to language, but it's due to some learning needs, the processing difficulty would always be there. And that would also always show in their first language, even if English is not their first language. And then the last bit they looked at was the variance and co-occurrence. Now we know that it affects each individual differently. So even though we call it the same condition, like we looked at, for some, the literacy aspects is affected the most. For some is the processing, some is the working memory. So no two individuals with dyslexia would experience it to the same degree. and it always co-occurs with other learning difficulties. So some people with dyslexia may have ADHD, some may have dyscalculia. So it's always, not all the time, but most often it occurs with other learning difficulty because of the processing and the neurological component of it. So that's why most kids with ADHD have some form of learning difficulty. And sometimes also students with dyslexia, though not always the case, may have co-occurring difficulty in math, which will call for dyscalculia or other developmental disorders like dysgraphia and all the others. Yes. So that was the Delphi study. This is long, I know. This is the International Dyslexia Association. So this is also the definition that came up from the US. So the one that we looked at was what came up from the UK research. And recently, the International Dyslexia Association also came up with their own definition. And we can see some overlapping areas that they all agree. Again, there's difficulty, word reading and spelling that involves accuracy and speed. So there's always that processing bit. And then it occurs along a continuum of severity. So it doesn't affect each person the same. Some it might be mild, some it might be severe, and it persists. So the struggle is still there in spite of the intervention. So anytime before we go on to say, is it dyslexia? That kid should have received support, intensive support across a number of years to say, oh, he's not making progress. And so let's look at that. But if we're not giving him any type of support, we cannot go ahead and say, oh, it's dyslexia. Maybe it's just poor teaching and not necessarily dyslexia. And they also say that the causes of dyslexia are complex. It's not just one. So now we're looking at multiple factors, not just one factor. And it says there's genetic component, neurobiological and environmental influences, and this all together affects the way that it affects the individual. Again, they also saw that phonological and morphological processes are common, but not universal. Like we said, for some people, the phonological aspect, which is the way that they see the language, they process it, might be impacted. But for some, that aspect of the reading and the spelling may not really be as severe. So it's not always the case that their spelling is weak, but it's not universal. So it doesn't affect everybody the same. And then, again, reading comprehension may be affected because of the processing, especially those that have difficulty with decoding because they spend so much of their brain energy trying to read and decode the word that they lose the comprehension part of it. But the one thing that they also agree was that early intervention is key. So regardless of whatever severity the kid have, if we can identify them early and provide the support, then it will not take away the dyslexia, but it would just reduce the impact of how it affects the individual. Can we move to the next slide? So now, in short, where do these two agree? So they've all, when you take the Delphi study and you take the International Dyslexia Association, their definition, we agree that it's neurodevelopmental, it's neurobiological in order, and then it's primarily affects some word reading, phonological processing, some aspects of spelling may be present, and also multiple cognitive. So it's not just one aspect, like we're not just looking at this specific thing and say, because this is showing you have dyslexia, we have to look at different areas. And then genetic, environmental factors also have an influence. So again, if someone is from a very supportive family, very environment, and they get the support, it will show differently than someone who doesn't. And it has continuum of severity. Again, it doesn't affect each individual the same. It affects everybody differently, as we can see each individual is affected differently, and then biological, which is what's happening in the brain, and then it affects the way that the brain processes information, and that is what we see as the behavior, as slow or difficulty with spelling, difficulty with reading. But all these are impacted by the type of environment that the child finds themselves. Yes, so this is where we all agree. Good. Now, what does the research tell us now? Now we know that right from day one, a kid that has the tendency to high risk of dyslexia would always show certain signs. Before we said, oh, we had to wait and see. No, now research is telling. So this research by Dr. Gab, she's a professor with Harvard. They did a research where 3-year-olds, kids in preschool, were put in like an MRI machine, and the brain scan for those with dyslexia who had. So because they are in early years, we can't say they have dyslexia because we haven't actually done the diagnosis, but we can see if they are at risk of identifying. And then it came out that when you do the scan, the brain of the person who is at risk of being dyslexic and the neurotypical brain, the brain is different. That's because the aspect of language where these two that is responsible for the language bit, it's not highlighted. So not that it's not there, it's there, but it's just not active enough. And this is where we ask for structured literacy intervention. So the more intervention the person gets, then it starts to activate these cells that have not been activated previously. So rather than saying, oh, he's still young, let's wait. Now research is telling us that if we take 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and put them in an MRI to do the brain scan, we can actually see kids. So if we can know, why don't we then provide the support as early as we can? Again, providing the support does not stop them from being later diagnosed with dyslexia. Again, because of the processing aspect of it, which will always be there. But then it will reduce the impact of them struggling. See, the 17-year-old that I showed you before, it would reduce that impact of struggling with spelling and reading. But then if they get that early support, then at least we know that part is taken care of. The processing bit, all we can do is accommodate them, give them extra time, even at the workplace, give them reminders to do their work and all those other things which are easier rather than waiting to see. It's the wait and see that has been impacting. So early screening to identify failure is what we are advocating for. And this is why we're not saying parents to put pressure on their young kids, but we're just saying that when we see the early signs, let us provide the early intervention. Could just be a speech therapy that the kid needs. And this brings us to, let's move on. So this brings us to the early indicators. So this, again, this list is not exhaustive. There's more. This is just a common example. So in the early years, many young children sometimes show this behavior. So it's some of them may be very common in young children, but then it's the severity and how long they keep repeating this, or how long this behaviors persist, that will cause for a red flag to say, maybe we should look into this. It's always better to look into it, and it's nothing than to just leave it and then it later on turns out. So most of them in the early years may struggle. Early years kids are learning nursery rhymes. This child will struggle with basic learning, nursery rhymes. Mary has a little lamb, like they will struggle with the rhyming. So you see, so the common one is also most of them would have a bit of speech delay in the early years. So that could be a red flag. So what can we do? Shouldn't we get them the early intervention in the form of speech therapy or all the forms of therapy that they need, or even if it's motor skills difficulty? Some may also struggle, especially when they move to KG2, where they're learning to write their names. They may be struggling with even their own names, which is what most of the kids are able to write. And then when they sometimes, again, with the speech, some of the letters, this is where it starts. They begin to confuse some of their letters. Even when they're saying spaghetti, they say pasgetti. They know, I know in Ghana, some of the kids, banana, they say anana. For some, it's common at that stage, but as they get older, is the behavior still persistent? Is it still showing and even following direction, forgetting even their own name? So these are common things that they are left and right. Again, at the young age, it's a very common thing among young children, but it's the way, if it keeps persisting. And I always say, parents, you have your instincts. Most of the time, you can feel when something doesn't just sit right. You may not really be able to explain, but then you would. So trust that feeling, that gut feeling, that you instinct that always comes to you, and then just take them to just rule out anything. It's always better you take them and it's nothing than to wait and then it turns out to be something. Yes. So these are just some common early years, and then can we look at the primary years? So again, this child now moves on to primary. This is where we start to see, because then now they are expected to sit and read. So this child has difficulty with blending. You may think that by this stage, they know most of their letter names, they know all their letter sound, but for some of these kids, they still struggle with that. And then common high frequency words, like the, is all these words, most kids will start to identify them. But if it's a red flag, then kids will start to struggle. And then they will start, the letter reversal, which was happening in the early years, will still continue. Again, sometimes it's not a concern, but beyond grade 2, then it becomes a concern, because most kids beyond grade 2 would be able to know the difference between their B's and D's, their lowercase U's and N's. But beyond that, then there is a red flag that something is not right. There's something going on. Again, within the classroom, teacher gives instruction. You see, this kid is always lost within the classroom. He needs you to repeat it several times, even identifying the days of the week. You ask them what day comes after Friday. Again, they're not able to give you that quick response. So these are some things that even during writing, sometimes you ask them, they can tell you whatever they're thinking. What did you do over the weekend? They can tell you everything, but then you tell them to go and sit and write. And that is where the difficulties come. So you know that this kid can tell me everything, but why can't he write it? So they try to avoid all the academic demand. So again, this might be based on the history that you have about this child. This will then tell you that, no, there's something going on that we need to look at, because this kid is not making progress. Can we move to the next slide? So before we look at secondary, so this is the first kid that we looked at, that I showed you the writing. So within the classroom in secondary, this was something that he told me. So when we looked at the definition of dyslexia, there was a word that talked about orthographic mapping. So all this means is that there's a part of our brain, the more that you see a word, so when you start to learn to read cat, it's cat. After several times, you see cat, you don't need to sound it out. You just know this is cat. So most words become sight words, like they get orthographically, they get mapped into your brain, such that most of you, as you're reading what is on this screen, you're not sounding them out, because you've seen these words so many times that now as soon as you see it, you can read it. But most of the kids with dyslexia, this particular kid, he had orthographic mapping difficulty. So this was what he told me. He said, I remember how a word looks like when I see it. So this kid can read. You give him everything, he can read. But once it's gone, I can't remember how it looks. So he can't spell. So most of these kids, when you look at their writing, the same word, they will spell it differently so many times. So because, how do I spell because? Yesterday I was able to write because, but today he's totally forgotten how to write it. That is orthographic mapping. And he's like, it's like showing me pictures of people and then putting blindfold on me and asking me who is in front of me. That's how he feels. So this is real. This is one of my students. He has severe spelling difficulties. And you saw the work sample that I showed you. So in secondary, this is how it might look like. Even though reading, he can read, he's very slow. Challenges with spelling, low processing. So this kid, we can see he's so slow. Sometimes it takes him days to complete a task, even though he can. Difficulty copying or note taking and handwriting. So sometimes you even go to meetings. This person, you know they can, but you ask them to take notes and they can't, because they can't just keep up with the whatever the person is saying for them to take notes. So how can we support? Can we move to the next slide? So looking at the one I just showed you, this is in context, a real person. These are other examples of signs. So again, we've seen the early years, we've seen the primary, it goes on. So most of the time, sometimes if they have weak orthography, it means even the same word. So that's why we're like, you give them words to memorize. Trust me, they can if they would if they could, but they just can't. So no amount of memorizing the words would help them. They need to learn how. And this is where structured literacy comes in. Learn how to do it. So there will be inconsistent spelling, poor handwriting, or slow writing speed. So some of these kids, we advocate for the use of technology to help them really be able to do that. So these are some of the things that you would see, especially as they get older. And for some kids, the older they get, they've learned ways to mask it. Sometimes they become the clown in the class from primary years. Anytime there's a reading task, they will be skipping classes, or even they will try to avoid it. But then we can see the slow processing. Sometimes they're so disorganized. Again, as we said, it's sometimes co-occurs with other learning difficulties. So sometimes their dyslexia may not have been diagnosed, but they will be diagnosed with ADHD because they are all over the place. But then when we dig deeper, you realize that they have some form of other learning difficulties that is impacting them. Can we move on? So the same kid that I just showed you, beyond the difficulties. So we talked about all the difficulties, and dyslexic, just like everybody else, they also have their strengths. And for me and for you as advocates, this is why I always say parents are the #1 advocates for their kids. So as you go advocating, empower the parents. They need to support their kids. When the kid goes to school, he's told you're stupid, you're dumb. When they come home, they don't need to hear the same thing. So parents, identify the strength. What are your kids good at? We know they're struggling with their reading, they're struggling academically. But beyond the academics, what are they good at? Learn what they are good at, and then empower yourself to advocate for them in the school, and also offer them opportunities to see that they can be successful. So this kid, in spite of everything, he has strength. So how can we capitalize on the strength beyond the spelling difficulty to support this kid? And we know, and sometimes we don't want to overemphasize that, oh, the dyslexic, they have superpowers and all that. The struggles are also very real. And not to make it sound like, oh, the strength, but if the strengths are there, but the child doesn't find themselves in an environment that would really pull that strength out, then we will never see those strengths. So again, the environmental influence, every individual, regardless of the struggle, would have a strength. So your dyslexic child, your dyslexic person that you know, what are their strengths? It could be that the course that the parents even want them to go and do in high school is not the best for them. What do they enjoy? What would they be successful at? And empower parents to really advocate for their kids. Can we move to the next slide? So this was when there is support. So the same student that I showed you, this is his work with support. So he wrote this poem, but again, with support. So this was to show teachers that he might be having spelling difficulties, but then he is capable with support. So most of these kids who are struggling, it's not that they can't, but the system has been set up in a way that they are not able to really show. And it takes just one person, and this is where teachers will, parents, to advocate and say, yes, they're struggling, but what can we do? So all we had to change was provide him with what? An assistive, a laptop, to say, okay, can we, whatever you're saying, just use the text-to-speech feature and then tell us what you want. This kid spent days, he didn't even know how to start the poem, but just a little change. This was what he was able to, and everybody was surprised because everybody had written him off that he couldn't do. And I'm like, no, he can't. He can do it. You just need to give the support. And this is where people are not ready to go the extra mile. And this is the same kid. He sat there for 30 minutes trying to write his answer. He knew what he was going to write, but he couldn't spell because, so he sat there. And then a teacher came and sat with him and then supported him. So again, this is why we're saying that difficulties will be there, but your role as advocates to create that understanding that beyond the difficulty, we can provide a support system that will look at what the child can do, rather than always looking at, oh, you're not good at this, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're this. No. So we're trying to change the narrative, and hopefully we would be able to change how people see individuals with learning difficulty. Can we move to the next slide? So again, what happens when dyslexia is missed? We've already talked about that. That's what children are mislabeled as lazy, destructive, they're not motivated. Academic gap would grow, as we've seen in this kid. It would always keep growing and growing, and it's difficult to catch up. And we all know within our tertiary institution, there's no support or accommodations in place for individuals with learning difficulties. The same expectation is there that they can do it, but then is there support in place? So when we miss kids, it's like we punish them for having a different brain because we don't provide the support, and they may end up within the justice system. And we all know how that ends for them. So again, your role as advocates, and all of us, this is why it's really important that we're speaking up, we're really empowering parents with information that your child is not lazy, he just learns differently. And even teachers, for teachers to change their mindset, because it just takes that one adult to believe in that child, and trust me, it changes the direction of the person's life. Can we check the next slide? Again, this is just to say why it's important. Again, looking at that child. So the challenge isn't the dyslexia itself. The real impact comes from late identification. If we're not able to identify that the struggle, there's a reason for it. And this is one of the reasons that what Rosalind is doing, it's amazing. Because in Africa, we're like, what? The kid is just dumb. What do you mean he has dyslexia? There's a name for it. It's like we feel like we're trying to make excuses for kids not performing. But no, now we know the research is there. So parents just need that awareness that no, fine, your child might be low, but there's a reason, and this is how to support. So identifying that early, rather than repeating kids and holding them back, it's what we are trying to advocate for. Can we move to the next slide? So this brings me to the next. I'm not sure, David, do we have some time? I wanted us to break up and just discuss this in smaller groups, or we can do it together. What do you think, David?
Fantastic. Yes, we have roughly, we will end at about 6 p.m. So it's now 5:13. And so we have roughly about 40 minutes or so. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to, I'm not sure how many people, and then the next slide has some myth and facts about dyslexia, just for you to discuss, and then maybe we'll come back and discuss together. Does that sound good, David?
Yeah, that's fine.
So can they see the slide when they move into breakout? Would they, the next slide? So just move to the next slide.
Hello, can I come in small?
Yes, please.
Okay, so they will not see the slides, and I'm looking at, this group is also not big like your group, which was hundreds.
Okay.
And the way your training is going, I'm like, I wouldn't want to break into a room for Fati to go into another room and
Okay.
when I cannot hear what she's saying. So since
Okay.
the group is small, if they can talk here, we all want to hear everybody. Because for me, I've enjoyed the training so much.
Okay, I'm glad you're finding it helpful. Okay, then we'll do it together. So let's look at this first one. Can you spot the myth? So the first one says, so everything that you've heard so far, let's see how good you are listening. You need to wait until you are 7 or older to identify with dyslexia. You can spot the signs of dyslexia in children as young as 5. Dyslexia is genetic, so runs in the family. So there's 2 truths and 1 is not true. So let's label it 1, 2, 3. So which one do you think is the myth? And why? You can unmute yourself and talk. I think this is interactive, so we can talk. What do you think? I can call out names if you want me to. Come on. Which one do you think is the myth? If you want to talk, just raise your hand and then I'm sure David can unmute you. Okay, we've got a volunteer, David.
Okay, 2 for me. You can go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Ma. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation with a lot of enlightenment. The myth and myths. This is the first statement. You need to wait until you are 7 or older to identify with dyslexia. Because you made mention that even at an early age, they can do a scan for the brain and be able to detect if there's like a slight possibility of a child having dyslexia, and they're being able to identify it on time, be able to give aspects for early support. So, of course, it's a myth. Thank you.
Awesome. See, you were paying attention. That is awesome. And I believe the rest of you also had the same. So, yes, we don't need to wait. Early intervention is key. But what would happen is we can't diagnose. So, there's a difference. We can identify and support, but we can't diagnose until beyond age 7. Best practice, some people do age 8. So, but yes, we don't need to wait. That I agree. Can we move to the next slide, David? Thank you. Is it Tofumo? So this is a bunch of different myths and facts. So read through and then you pick one and then explain why it's a fact, why it's a myth. I'll give you 1 minute to read and then just pick whichever you want and then you raise your hand and then we can talk.
Okay, so I think I have 2 for me and I have Raphael. So let me pick Raphael.
Okay.
Is that okay, Fati?
Yeah, go ahead. Whoever,
Right,
yes.
yeah, great. Raphael, you can go ahead.
All right, so thank you very much. This is Raphael. Please, I'm speaking on the first one, which says people grow out of dyslexia, and I think, to me, I think it's a fact because yes, once it got known or it's realized that an individual is having dyslexia, with the proper attention, with the proper initiative, and then remedies and then support, I think yes, the individual will be able to grow out of dyslexia. That's to me.
Anybody has something else to say?
Yeah, I think Tufumi's hand is up. Tufumi, you can go ahead.
Okay. I just hope you guys don't mind that. I'm just happy to, because I'm actually very interested in this learning differences, so and I want to get it right. So, but I would not agree with you, sir, on the fact that he said that they can go out of dyslexia. For me, that is a myth.
Why?
Because it's brain based. You cannot grow out of it. And then we've been taught that it is genetic, something you inherited from birth. So of course your brain has been structured in a particular way. It cannot be restructured. It can only be helped with support and help it feel and grow better to be able to deal with those differences in a better way with support. But it doesn't stop the brain from having those challenges still being stuck there. So you cannot outgrow them, but you can only get better at it with the right support.
Okay, thank you. And yes, so as we said, it's neurobiological. So it has something to do with the way that the brain is wired. And I'm sure if we ask Rosalind right now, has she grown out of her dyslexia? She would tell us nope. Again, the support would help limit or minimize the impact, the way that it would have affected you, but you would always be dyslexic. You don't just wake up today and then tomorrow you're like, oh, my dyslexia is gone. No, it will always be with you because it's the way that your brain is wired. Yes.
All right. Omotola hand is up. Omotola.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, mom.
Okay, yes, I want to talk on number 2, which says dyslexia is a lifelong, but with early support, impact can significantly be reduced, which is actually a fact. If there is early support, if the screening can take place early enough, maybe from when the child is 7, 8, it will go a long way to help the child, even though dyslexia is genetic. It can't be cured, but at least it can significantly be impacted in a positive way that won't show too much. The child will be able to cope and thrive, which is very, very important. Then also number 8, which says dyslexia is a neurological language-based difference. It affects how the brain processes sounds and written language. Is true. It affects how the brain processes spelling, reading, and all that. But again, it should not be, it's not necessarily visual stress. Visual stress is something entirely different. Dyslexia is on its own, so there might be some comorbidities, some other things maybe coming to play in that individual apart from dyslexia. So dyslexia might be on its own. ADHD is there, autism is there, but dyslexia is just the reading, the spelling, the processing, the understanding. So let's not mix it up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Omotola.
Right. Oluwatosin, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I want to talk on myth number 6 and number 4.
Right.
Myth number 6 said dyslexia is like to intelligence. Well, dyslexia is not like to intelligence. Rather, it's just a neurological disorder. Sorry, a neurological difference that shows how the brain processes sounds, written text, languages, and so it is not like to intelligence. So you not say dyslexia and you see intelligence. It's the way the brain processes. Brain processing has nothing to do with intelligence. Because the reason I'm saying this is I shared a bit of my story in my video when I was applying for this advocacy, and I saw that the presence of dyslexia did not affect my intelligence at all. It did not. Just with the right intervention, I was able to know what I need to put in place to show out my level of intelligence, to display my coping mechanism, or how to show my strength and how to navigate through my weaknesses. So that brings me to a point, Miss number 4, that says people with dyslexia have a wide range of strengths.
Oluwatu, can you just hold on? I don't want to ruin the fun. So let's have somebody else talk and then you come back to it. Yeah. And then you will add to it.
Right.
So, yes.
So Namiti, you can go.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to say, first of all, before I even say anything else, that I want to commend the instructor for today. This is just feedback for you because I don't know when I'll have an opportunity to give this feedback again. I love the way you teach. There is a certain level of awareness that you bring to learning that makes details just stand out. And I actually feel that that's a superpower. Now back to the main quiz here. I want to talk about number 5, which says dyslexia is a vision problem. Let us move, jump, or blur on the page. And for me, I think this almost looks like a fact, but it is not. I think it's a myth. Dyslexia is not a vision problem. If you have a vision problem, it's probably going to be something like myopia, hypermyopia, and all that, things that have to do with your vision, your eyes. But what you experience, what dyslexics experience in terms of vision is just a symptom that reflects how their brain processes information. It is not, they don't have a vision problem. They actually see very well. I think that's how I would love to drop that there. Thank you.
You're right. Isn't Namiti? You're right. And I think this is one of the common myths also that, and I remember 2 days ago, I was asking some of my students, I'm like, have you heard the word dyslexia? Like, yeah, when people see letters jumping up and down. Why do people believe that? Because almost all the movies you watch that talks about dyslexia will show the letters jumping in the person's face. And this brings to links to the fact number 8, the last bit that talks about visual stress. So some individuals have visual stress, which is not dyslexia. That affects the way they see things. So some of them things might look blurry, some of them might be seeing things that they're jumping, but that's not dyslexia. So there's a condition called visual stress that affect the way people see. Some people with dyslexia might have visual stress, but visual stress is not dyslexia. So this is where for some people with visual stress, the background of the text they may need a different color to be able to really see the text that you're showing. So I 100% agree, it's not a vision problem. People with dyslexia don't see letters jumping. So if you're seeing letters jumping, then maybe you need to see the ophthalmologist to really have a look at your eye. And that's one of the things that sometimes we recommend. When parents raise concerns about their kids and their learning difficulty, the first thing we do is, have you had their eyes checked? Have you had their ears checked? Because there have been instances where the kid, all this time, they can't even properly hear the letter sounds that the teachers are saying. And nobody knew. And this kid is not even talking properly, and we were wondering, but then they went in and apparently there was something to do with the ear. So these are 2 things that usually we first tell parents to check, especially in the early years. Check with the ear, the hearing, check the eyes. If all this is good, then we'll move to the next one. So thank you, Namiti. Yes, we still have, I think we have some that haven't
we have some hands up.
Yes.
Let me pick Omobola. Yeah, and then I'll come to Shakira. So Omobola, you have the floor. Then let me come to Shakira.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And, thank you for this lecture. It has actually been an eye-opener for me. Yes. I want to talk on number 3. All people with dyslexia are creative. Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes. All people with dyslexia are creative, and I want to support that because this is in the aspect where fine, they struggle with we were meant to believe that they struggle with writing, reading, and having difficulty in spelling and all that. But because I've actually had an experience with some children or a particular child in my class that when it comes to writing, you can't even see what he's writing. He writes it anyhow and very slow, all those symptoms and everything. But when it comes to doing QR writing, I mean calculations, I tempt him as his calculator because he's before before we even finish the class work, I mean the class explanation, he's done with the work. His brain is calculated as he's good in calculation and all that. Then in the aspects where there's difficulty in them writing, they could be good in some other aspect, like they could be CCA, maybe drawing, painting, they'll be good in that aspect, or it could be in the social aspect. Maybe one wants to have like a rehearsals, and maybe want to have like a sparkle night, or something want to have dancing in the class, presentations. They will be good in talking and then performing presentations like dancing and creating, like I said in the CCA class, when it comes to molding of objects using plasticine, you will see that they'll be perfect in that. So I want to believe that yes, all people with dyslexia are, most of them, okay, let me use what both of them are creative, because it's not just in the actual where they are struggling with writing and struggling with reading and then struggling with comprehending and then spelling, but they are also good and perfect in several other aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Omobala. Does anybody wants to add to what Omobala said?
I think we have Shakira and Bridget. So this will be the last two. Then we continue.
Okay.
Shakira, you can go ahead.
Someone who wants to talk about what Omobala. Shakira, who is talking now?
Yeah, this is Shakira.
Are you talking on point number 3? I want somebody who will talk on point number 3.
Point number 3. Okay. Let me say something there. Thank you very much for this eye-opening platform. Thank you so much. I appreciate it all. Let me say something there. I am fortunate to have a class that the kids in there have one learning difficulty or the other. But to back up what Omobalani has said, all people with dyslexia are creative. One way or the other, they are. Meanwhile, I have one particular learner, a year 6-old boy, because if I should agree that they are creative, then probably there is something within them which a teacher or an adult will need to take time to look into. This very learner has practically nothing to give out unless I give a push. When it comes to drawing, when it comes to writing, spelling, but there's one thing I noticed about this learner. When he sees you doing something, he would always want to do it. He would always want to practice it. So I would always love to pair him with somebody to see if he can be able to bring out something hiding inside him, which we are yet to point out. Even the parents agreed with me that they are finding it difficult to know whom it is, which I also believe.
Is Shakira there? No. I think we lost her.
Some hitches with her connection.
I think both of you have made interesting points, but again, it says all people with dyslexia. And so this is the part that makes it a myth. And this links to point number 4. Even though some might be creative, not every single individual with dyslexia is creative. Just like all of us, the average, like the typical neurotypical people, we are all not creative. If you give me a paper on visual arts to draw and save my life, trust me, I can't do it. So people with dyslexia have a range of strengths and abilities. Yes, they do. So do people who don't have dyslexia. Creativity is not universal. So we can't say because you have dyslexia, you are creative. No, it's not. Remember, we said dyslexia affects each individual differently. So they all experience it differently. So just like every individual, individuals with dyslexia also vary. So yes, some can be creative, but if I had said some people, we would agree, but all, we can say all individuals. And this brings to the way that we overgeneralize and make it fine. There's a strength to it, but there's also the difficulty part. So no, not all individuals with dyslexia are creative. Some are creative in different aspects, like Omobola said, but not all of them are creative. That makes sense? Yeah. I think there's one more that maybe Dorcas hasn't spoken.
Yeah, Dorcas, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful session. What I wanted to add, I think you already answered. I wanted to talk about it being a myth. That's number 3. But what I also wanted to just add briefly is, now because we see dyslexia as a weakness already, so looking down on the child's weakness, when the child now shows strength in other things, we now generalize it that they are creative. So in most cases, you see them excelling in other areas of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorcas. Anybody who wants to add, or can we move to the next slide? Is there anyone that we didn't talk about?
Okay, so I think the hand we have here is Shakira. I think she has spoken already. And then we have Omobola, which has also spoken already. And we have Omotola spoken already. So if you still want to speak, just let me know so that maybe okay, fine. I think they are okay.
Yeah, okay. So the last one was number 7. So yes, dyslexia, it can impact spelling, writing, processing, and working memory. The myth was that dyslexia only affects reading. No, it's not just about reading. It can impact spelling, writing, processing, speed, and then working memory. Yes, so can we move to the next slide? I think that's the last slide. Yes. So this is where we come to your role as an advocate. It is really important that after, because sometimes like we do all this training and it's like we're feeling so empowered and we go out there and sometimes in attempts to create awareness, we misrepresent ourselves. So it's really important that we're clear that as an advocate, your role is not to diagnose a kid, and because we've had that in the past where advocates now feel like, oh, I'm a dyslexia specialist. I can diagnose your child with dyslexia. I did a training with ADO. Now I have the certificates. Please don't. Your role, and this is where it starts, right? Just like for me, it started from there, but then my interest and passion drove me to get more training, and now I'm on my way to being a specialist assessor. I'm not there yet to be able to assess. So even though now I'm a dyslexia specialist who provide dyslexia support in different areas, I still cannot yet call myself an assessor because I'm still not there. So your role as an advocate, it's really important that you're able to be clear on that. And I know there's other sessions that will really dig deeper to talk about the language to use and your role in order to, whilst you're representing yourself and ADO out there, you make sure that it's within the boundaries of your expertise or your experiences, and ADO is always here to provide that additional support. Anything that you come across that you're not sure of, you always redirect them to ADO, and ADO would be able to guide and give direction so that you don't find yourself in situations that are uncomfortable. So I'm sure there's more on advocacy boundaries, and so I wouldn't really speak much to it. But again, it's important that you understand the extent to which this training takes you, and not to misrepresent yourself. And I think that's it, right, David? There's a last slide. And feel free if you have any questions. So this is the last bit to just get us talking. What would you stop saying after today? What would you start saying? So I know in the start I asked you when you hear the word dyslexia. I hope this few talk that we had have really changed a few things, perception. So just to hear, and then if you have any questions also you can ask. I think this is the end for me, David, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I said understanding changes outcome. Early identification is just educational support. Act early, advocate boldly, protect potential. So it's early identification for me, it's advocating for me. So it's really, anybody who works with me know that when it comes to my students or people that I work with, I don't care who you are, I'm like their police detective. I'll fight for them. So this is what I want you to empower parents, empower families, and you will be surprised how much impact you can make. And ADO is always here to support you in whatever way that you need. Shukran. Thank you. Yes. Questions? Anything? Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Fati. So at this point, if you have any question, can you put up your hand, or you can feel free to type it in the chat room and I'll read it out. But if you have any question, any point at which where you need clarification, Madam Fati is highly available to assist. Any question at this point? Right, Omobola has a question. So let me kindly unmute Omobola. Right, Omobola. Yeah, Omobola, you can. Sorry, Omotola, you can go ahead. Omotola.
Yes, Omotola, not Omobola. Okay, yes, actually, I want to comment on the last slide. Things an advocate should do and things that we are not. We don't, as we are just advocates. What we should do is to enlighten people, educate people, encourage people to go for early screening, do early intervention. We are not necessarily therapists or start diagnosing people. That's not what we are meant to do. A lot of us get it wrong and start being, thinking we are fixers or you can work miracles and start giving hopes where not necessary. You just kind of you change everything and the person does not really understand what dyslexia is. You start making them believe that, oh, there's a cure. No, there might be no cure, but there is hope that this person can thrive. So I think it's very important that we as advocates should not turn ourselves into what we are not. You start diagnosing and you become a therapist and all that. Rather, advocate, enlighten people, and encourage people to go for that early screening where they've not gone for any early screening. Encourage them that there are some supports that could be given to these individuals to equally make them live life significantly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We appreciate your consent. Thank you very much. All right. Any other question? Anyone wants to share anything with us? Yeah. Anyone want to share anything, any question where we need clarification, any contribution, if you want to contribute or you want to share some experience with us, real-time experience, if you want to share, you can go ahead, put up your hand and then share. All right. Okay, so Shakira, please go ahead. Shakira, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the facilitator for today. Thank you so much. You really remind me of one thing I would always do. Let me say back then, which I no longer do. Once I see a child not given what is expected, I would always assume probably the child was lazy or probably the child was not someone that is interested in learning. But coming up with one thing ever since I've come across dyslexia as a learning challenge, I got to realize that sometimes some of this learn. That is why I'm not I appreciate Omotola just spoke now. She said we cannot diagnose. We are just to advise and let people understand that perhaps there is something, to create awareness for dyslexia, which I would always try. I've been trying to tell parents recently that probably something might be which I can't tell, but some of these dyslexic learners also have something in them which I will call fear. And with the help of our support, our explanation, enlightenment to parents, they will also need to help these children to overcome that fear, because it's also one of those things that make them to fall deeply into dyslexia. And just like the learner I was using the other time, that very boy was brought to me with nothing to give to me. But then in the course of when I still did not have the knowledge about dyslexia, I always assumed that probably the boy was lazy. Then I realized that somewhere, somehow, sometime, something snapped and locked that boy up. And the boy then resumed into fear and eventually locked up entirely. So it took me time with the help of my knowledge about this. Even I wouldn't have, because I can't say that the guy was dyslexic, but now, because now after 4 months being with me, the boy can read, the boy can, but the only thing that just takes his time is for him to think, to process whatever instruction is given to him. So I wouldn't say probably he's still dyslexic, because I knew when it was given to me, he was overwhelmed with extreme fear. So these are one of those things also that I will also give as a suggestion to my co-advocates, that when we are telling parents, we should also let them understand that fear and this can also be part of those things that might make a child to end up falling into some of being misdiagnosed. I'm sorry if my word is wrong, for dyslexia. So we should always be there to give support to any child that is not finding it easy, because something somewhere, somehow, something must have gone wrong that might make the child to end up becoming dyslexic due to locking himself or herself up entirely. That's just the little I have to give down here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was very inspiring. Yeah, very inspiring there. Omobola, yes, you can unmute yourself. Omobola, your hand is up.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much. I would also like to contribute to today's session, because awareness is very, very important. It's very important because a lot of the parents out there, not only parents, teachers, they don't know how it goes. Because like I said earlier, that this training has actually been an eye opener for me, because I have like should I say like 3 or 4 or 5 of these children in my class, which the parents, in fact, at the initial stage when they're coming to the class, there was one that the mother told me that she's very slow. She's a special child. She can't. I said, see, you don't say that. I said, you don't talk like that. By the grace of God, she will pass through it. You know, actually, I also see them then as lazy, stubborn. You know, because there are even some of them that when coming to school, getting to the gates, they are already scared. Some of them are already crying. They don't want to come to school, you know. But with this training, I mean, it's really an eye opener that we have that the dyslexia is actually a learning difference, and it's not something that can be fixed. It's something that can be managed.
Hello, Omobola,
It
you
should
there?
be managed. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So it's something that can be managed, and it cannot be fixed, you know. And we teachers should also try and learn that we should, since we've seen how the whole thing is now, we should try and encourage these children by supporting them and identify where they are creative. Like our facilitator said, not all of them are creative. Yes, I agree with that. Not all of them are creative. It's just some of them. And it has to be from the work of the teacher to identify the learner's strengths. When you identify the strength, oh, he's good in this. He's good in, even if he's not, and he's slow in writing or not good in spelling or this, but there are some other things that they are good in. And like the last speaker said, I think Sophie, she said, fear. Yes, because definitely teachers that are not aware of this of dyslexia or anything, they begin to call them names, and that will lead to stigmatization, which they start to call them, you are lazy. Oh, you come again. Come on, do your work. Come on, write. That alone is already fear, because by the time you look at them closely, you will see that even while writing, their hands are shaking. Their hands are shaking. So my contribution here is that yes, they actually need support, just like Omotola mentioned, they need support, and with this support, it will help them a long way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Omobola. Namiti, please, you can have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. So I want to very specially and still appreciate ADU's program. And just like the other speakers have said, what I am concerned, a big concern about the fact that after advocacy, most of these parents or most teachers or most schools, depending on where we're going to do the advocacy, will always ask, or they'll start bringing up symptoms like, they'll bring up children who have symptoms in their classes, and they say, oh, there's something they are aware. And the next question they're asking you is, so what next? What are we going to do? So is there a way the ADO can help us channel, those inquiries to, so that we wouldn't just have to create awareness and then we don't have maybe a way of helping these people access maybe diagnosis or assessment for suspicious cases. Permit me to use that word. It's not a really ideal word, but cases that have symptoms that apparently look like symptoms of dyslexia. Is there a channel where we could reach those inquiries or cases or concerns to? Because those concerns will definitely come. They'll definitely come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. I think.
David, do you want me to? So this is one of the things that, and I think this is the whole point of this advocacy program, because whilst Rosalind is based in Ghana, casting our nets very wide across the continent, where we are able to really establish mini Rosalind ADO within each country, and then we will be able to coordinate our efforts in achieving. So for now, I believe one of the things that ADO does is, beyond this advocacy training, is also offer that a different, I know somebody also asked in the question in terms of diagnosis. So if within Ghana, there are specific places that ADO can direct people to. And then I'm sure outside of Ghana, if it's Nigeria or within the other countries, we would be able to, with the local support that we have, direct you. And Rosalind is here. She's the best person to answer this. Yes, Rosalind.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's a good question you have raised. And if you remember when we did the orientation, we mentioned that you as an advocate, after your graduation, you are an advocate, but also a representative of the Africa Dyslexia Organization in your country. And so one thing that as an advocate, you should right now even start to do is, okay, if I'm in Nigeria, depending on which location you are in Lagos, which other organizations within Lagos provide dyslexia support services like assessments, interventions. So if you're in Lagos, of course, Dyslexia Nigeria. If you're an advocate in Lagos and you don't know already, and I'm telling you, that's a bit of shame because you should have done your research by now to know which other organizations are doing this work in within. If you are in Abuja, we have so many partners around, from Malawi to Kenya to Nigeria to South Africa to Cameroon. We have people that do diagnosis or do dyslexia intervention support. So your duty as an advocate is that you are there creating awareness, but there will be situations that will be over you. You get to a school and the school will be like, oh, we see these problems here, but our teachers are not trained. As an advocate, you might not be able to train a teacher. You will not be able to train a teacher to do intervention. You can create the awareness for them to be aware. And your duty is that you write back to us. So you look at it this way, like Ghana is HQ, right? And you are in Nigeria. So you write to your HQ and say that, hey, St. Peter's schools, when I went to raise awareness, they need more training. And we provide training per consultancy. Okay? If the school can afford, we will be able to train for them. If they want it in person and they can afford for us to bring Fati and all the other team members over to Lagos or Abuja, we will be there to train. If they cannot afford and we have to do it virtual training for them, we will be able to customize training for them. It's not just training for teachers. We do from inclusive policies. So schools that want to make their schools more inclusive, they want to have their policies. They want us to do an audit framework for them so that we will see which level they are and the area of improvement. We do all that. When it comes to workplaces, workplace inclusion. So you are there to look for all these opportunities that are coming. So imagine that St. Peter's School says they need training. And you, the advocates, you are the one that really brought this school that they said they needed training. Do you think after training, anyone will be like, oh, Nemete, thank you so much for bringing the contact. We've done the training, they've paid, so we are gone. That is when Nemete, you get something for your pocket and also to support the continual advocacy that you are doing. And that is how we want you to look at it. So when the situation is so huge, always take from Fati, reach out to the organization because you are actually the organization, but reach out to the people who are working every day that, hey, I need a contact from Sudan. I'm in Sudan, somebody wants assessment done or somebody wants intervention done, and we will find you the contact. In any case where we don't have anybody there, what we do is, like this morning, I have already given a contact to somebody sitting in Abuja who runs a dyslexia online intervention for children. But the woman is here in Ghana, and they are going to be working with the lady to support their children. So we have so many resources, and your duty is that just let us know. Don't just assume and give us false information, because parents and teachers, once they don't get the outcome they need, they will come back at you that you gave them false information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Rosa. Thank you very much for the clarification.
And David, I think the last bit also of what I would like to ask is that I realize that advocates, when they come and we train them like this, they just sit with that information without really getting to know what really Africa Dyslexia Organization is about. And the first place is our website. There's so much information about us, what we do, XYZ. If you're really going to be representing this organization, you need to know our mission, you need to know our vision, you need to know our product or services line that we provide. Who here? We released a screening test kit for piloting this week. Which among you have even gone there to take it? Or which among you have even gone there to share it with people? This is how you get to know the organization you are with, so that you're just not one-way focused, but really embrace this and embrace it well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mom. Indeed, you need to be abreast with what the organization stands for and what we believe in. Let me pick Oluwatosin. Let me pick Oluwatosin here. You can unmute yourself, Oluwatosin.
Okay, thank you, Madam Fati. Thank you, Madam Rosa. Thank you, everybody that has spoken so far. One of the things I really enjoyed was the session where you were talking about how to identify dyslexia among high school students. Well, I have a question. Okay, I want some clarification. One of the reasons I joined and I applied to be an advocate is because of what I do. We run an inclusive education hub here in Nigeria, in Ibadan. I was fortunate to have my master's in learning disabilities. Oh yes, we did screening tests for dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysorthography, dysgraphia. So, but my question now is, and so I was looking forward to collaborations and aside advocacy. So, and alongside, we have what we do for children on the spectrum, because we have I'm taking courses to be a qualified behavior analyst currently. So that's with the qualified applied behavior analysis board. So, so when we are going through what an advocate is, and what an advocate is not, so I said to pop in this question. So I know that there are other standard trainings they do for dyslexia, for screening and all. But one of the things that is obtainable here in Nigeria that I know is once you have a master's degree in special education, especially from University of Ibadan. I think we have just 3 to 5 universities in Nigeria that offer a master's degree in special education and in certain departments. So like learning disability. So we have a unit called Learning Disability Unit. So you can, because we are trained, you can do some form of assessment. However, you may not be able to diagnose except you have the complete diagnostic tools, because we have diagnostic tools. So one of the reasons I wanted to be an advocate was to see how that, because we have people who cannot afford being diagnosed, because diagnosis take it's a lot of money, not just for dyslexia, even for autism. I see people come down to Nigeria just to get assessed and go back to the US to begin treatment because of cost and then the waiting line abroad. So my question is, when we see schools, families that cannot afford this diagnosis, from my end, what we do is we do a screening, like something like was posted last week for us to go through. And then from the screening, we screen and we say, okay, we give like intervention, research, evidence-based research intervention for individuals. It has to be an individualized program. So I'm asking because Madam Rosa was saying that when they get schools, so when we get to communities, because I'm really looking out for communities like Shaki, like we have some communities here in Oyo State that they can't afford it. So they can't afford diagnosis as advocates. And well, alongside with some experiences I have in my organization, what are we supposed to do so that there won't be so we won't overstep our boundaries as advocates? What are the right things we can and we should do?
Rosalind, do you want to come in or do you want me to? Because I know, just like Rosalind said, so there's a lot of screening tools out there, and some that we can recommend, some from very international organizations that ADO collaborates with as well. Most of them are free. So these are just screeners to be able to identify kids who are at risk. And also, I know ADO just launched one also just this week as well, which is also should be accessible to everyone. right? So I know Rosalind, but again, my question would be beyond the screening, beyond the diagnosis. I always tell parents, why do you want to get the diagnosis? If you get the diagnosis, you have the report and it's somewhere in your drawer and the school is doing nothing for your child. What's the point of the diagnosis or the label? So again, as much as we are advocating for awareness and screening and diagnosis, the ultimate thing that will change is the support. And we need people to be, if it's teachers, are teachers trained enough? And we know most of this is a conversation that we've been having. Most of our teacher training programs do not even train people in learning difficulty. And this is not just an African problem, it's a global problem. Teachers come into the classroom, they have no idea what learning difficulties are. So again, we would screening is amazing, diagnosing the child is amazing, but again, what happens beyond the diagnosis? Will that change the support the child will get? And that's what we're asking. And then Rosalind can talk more about the screening tools. Yes, Rosalind.
Okay, so I had to step away to pick a call from the ministry. So I would say that I have to be frank that I lost what she said. But if it's screening too, one of the things that just I will touch base on it is there is so many screening tools out there, but then they were not built for Africans. And so there's that kind of the African context that is lagging. And why am I saying this? Africa, we are multilingual speakers, right? And if you pick it, for example, I'll make it an example for you. When it goes to US, a handbag is called a pocketbook, okay? When it comes to our part of the world, it's a handbag, isn't it? So when it comes to screening and assessment too, and there is, for example, a picture of a handbag, and assessors say that, okay, could you look at the picture that is there and tell me what it is? Read the word that is there. You might see that the child will be like, it's a handbag. Whereas it's a pocketbook that is written there. And because the child has said it's a handbag, the assessment is, or the screener is going to do what? Say that the child is wrong. And that is a simple example I'll give you of how these assessments and screening tools goes against us. Okay. Another one also is the accents. So let's say, especially the one that the child needs to read so that he hears to see how the pronunciations are. All of us here, I think we are about 5 or 8 countries that is here. If Nigeria should start speaking versus me in Ghana, even within us in Ghana, we speak differently. And so you see, we have a very complicated situation. So even though that's why I like the checklist type of thing. So that's what the current assessment tool we have released is on. It's just because you as the educator, before you go on, or a parent, before they go on that assessment tool or that screening tool, they already know that my child is struggling. He loses space when reading. He cannot blend words. But when it comes to, when you take it from there, then it becomes a little biased against us. And one thing we are working on, and as I'm sitting here, I'm chatting with Dr. Julie Washington, Fati and David knows her very well. We're chatting on, because they saw our screening tool we have released this week, and they've called me saying that they've seen that we are interested in that, but they want to support ADO to come to find a way to build it culturally responsive screening tools. And so that's what I'll tell you. But there are ones that you as an educator can start practicing with it, just to know how it works, what kind of test question parameters are they setting, as an example. So you can go on and do that. And I also see it also for parents, it's a form of awareness, because they are beating the child. But once, if they go on ADO screener right now, by the time they finish answering the question, they'll be like, oh, really? These people are saying maybe my child is not lazy. So maybe there could be an issue. So that's also a form of awareness if you take it that form. But assessment or screening without having teachers that are trained to support is endless.
So yeah, sorry, David, go ahead.
Yeah, Fati, you can go ahead. I'm about wrapping everything up, so you can go ahead. Yeah,
I just wanted to add to that. So this again, we would, if you're looking for screeners to recommend, those that we can recommend are usually the ones that Rosalind said, they are checklists and very descriptive in terms of the signs or indicators that you see. So yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then when you're done, you look at how many yeses and how many no's. And that just gives you an idea to say, oh, it could be. But again, then you have to then redirect to a specialist to do that. But again, beyond that, what happens is the support and the awareness. So we tell the parent, get the support, push for your child to get the support. And yeah, so you can reach out if there are specific ones that you're looking for. I'm sure Rosalind and the team can help and direct you on that. Yeah. David?
And I'm putting in the new screener we released this thing for them to understand what a checklist-based screener is. I will encourage you, or even though you are not dyslexic, so it's so transparent in a way that it doesn't force you to choose what you are not. So you read it carefully, you choose. And I've seen at the back end, some people even went and did, and it's like never, 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 never. And it still shows that it's never, which is good. But then it helps you to know. And then if you even want to play around more, you could, if you are in a school setting and you have a student, you pick the child's book or you pick the child profile, you sit with the child and you remember everything about the child, and you use the one and you put in your data, you put in the student data, and you can actually go through, okay, Kofi is struggling with this, Kofi is this, Kofi has this, Kofi has this. And when you finish, you see what it will give you. So I've put in it in the chat, but we will bring you more as well as time goes on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lady Rosa. Thank you very much, Fati Siddique. I believe today has been a wonderful session with all of you, and we are proud and happy to have all of you on board. Fati, I want to say God richly bless you for your time. In fact, we appreciate you and we appreciate your time as well. Do you have any last words for us before you can sign off, Fati?
Yeah, I'm good. I think we've really shared everything. But for me, it's advocate, empower parents, empower yourself, and always remember your why. Why am I doing this? And parents will see. Sometimes I see parents that I feel like I'm more passionate about supporting their child than they are, but then eventually they see it and they also trust believing in their child. Whatever you see, they also see it. So you may face some resistance, but always remember why you're doing this. And trust me, once you start seeing the impact, you will never want to stop and you will be bothering Rosalind every day. So yeah, thank you so much. And we look forward to more of these sessions as you embark on your advocacy journey. Always remember why you're doing this. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Fati. God richly bless you for your time. Okay, so our passphrase for today's session is diagnose not. Diagnose not. Diagnose not. Diagnose not. So I'm going to put it in the chat room so you can have a view of it. Do not diagnose. All right. So diagnose not. All right. Diagnose not. So it's in the chat session. You can diagnose not. Yeah, you can have a view of it, and then that will be our passphrase for today's session, right? As advocates, we are not supposed to diagnose. We are not supposed to diagnose. If we have chances by which where after this training you feel very empowered. That is fantastic. You can reach out to ADO team, and we will help you become an assessor, all right, or a trainer, or even part of the team, all right? But at this point in time, please do not go diagnosing, all right? So diagnose not, or else you are going to misrepresent yourself and the organization as well. Okay, so I have some few updates for you as parent advocates. So at our attendance, as at 4 36, we were 15. As at 4:36, we were 15 out of 23. And then as at 4:40, we had Raf joining us, making 16 out of 23. And then as at 5:41, we were 14. And as at 5:56, we had 13 participants. Please and please and please again, you are supposed to stay through till the end of every session. You are supposed to stay through to the end of every session. And so, because tomorrow we are going to meet again for Module 4, which talks about stigma, culture, and narrative change, what I'm going to do is that after tomorrow's session, which is exactly the 4 modules, we are going to post your attendance for you to see. So where you need to step up, you really have to step up, because we've said that if you don't meet the attendance rate, trust me, you are not going to graduate. It is a full course. You are not going to graduate. And so after tomorrow's session, which is the 4th session, we have 8 modules to go. So after the 4th session, we are going to post your attendance rate for you to see. So where you need to step up, you really have to step up. Because see, we want all of you to go out there and represent us well, because people have represented the company, the organization, that will make it more attractive for you to come and join. All right. And so we don't just want to graduate any other person, but people who are willing to serve, people who are dedicated. These are those we want to travel with. All right. And so please and please again, we don't want any of you to fail. We don't want any of you to drop off. We are all in this together. I like those of you chatting me backstage, helping ourselves. And that is fantastic. That is the energy I want as advocates. All right. And so please and please again, let's do our possible best to work as a team. All right. I can see Tufumi, your hand is up. This is what I'm about wrapping up. Okay, but let me just pick you to know what you want to say. Then we can wrap up. Tufumi.
All right, so I just wanted to, speaking on advocacy, I went through the calendar, and then the first project is actually between 9 to 13. And after this week, the next session is like in the next 2 weeks. So my question is, because here in Nigeria, there is no place you want to go to that you must not, that you have to come where I heard with an awareness, like a letter, to let them know, oh, we'll be coming by for this and that at so period. So like the process, so I want to know, like, when are we going to get like an official letter to be able to like deliver to those, because in my own side of the country, you have to like tell them like weeks ahead. So it's not something like you have to just bump into their face and say, oh, next week I'm coming to your place to come and do. Even community area, the ballets, they want you to come and visit them, to let them know, oh, okay, we want to come to your community and do this and that. So like they like this strong, like they don't like impromptu, they like to be aware. Where in fact you even do double notification. So that's why I'm trying to like
Right. Thank you very much. Tufumi, thank you very much. And so what is going to happen, right? We cannot go issuing letters to all of you if you haven't requested for it. And so after this training, I'm going to put my email address in the chat room. Whatever you need, whatever resources that you need for your advocacy journey, okay, as an aspirant advocate, just email me whatever resource you need. I will forward it to the right authorities, and they are going to email you back with everything that you need. All right. And so please and please again, just list whatever you need, including letters, anything that you think you need for your journey. Trust me, I'm going to forward it to the right authorities, and we're going to get back to you. All right. Thank you very much for your time. And today we've taken almost 10 minutes of your time. That is fantastic. But also tomorrow we are meeting again for Module 4, Stigma, Culture, and Narrative Change. I believe you all enjoyed yourself. Once you're going, have a wonderful sleep and do well to wake up on whatever we have learned. I'll also share with you the feedback form in the platform so that you can also fill out the feedback form. Remember, the passphrase is diagnose, not diagnose, not. Thank you very much for your time. And Madam Rosa, thank you very much for the opportunity given to our aspiring advocates to learn, yes, and to become part of ADO family. And then Madam Siddique, I appreciate you wherever you are. Kisses going flying out there to you wherever you are, and all our advocates. Seth, thank you very much for being at the technical bench, helping us have a wonderful and a smooth session. God bless you all and bless the ADO team. On that note, I want all of you to unmute yourself, and then we wish ourselves good night and bye-bye. So we meet tomorrow again. All right. So it's bye-bye for now. You can all unmute yourself. Yes. You can all unmute yourself. Yeah. And then just bye-bye for everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye
Thank
to
you.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Have a good night. See you all tomorrow. Thank you,
Omobola, bye-bye.
Fati.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good
Much
night.
love. Much
Thank
love.
you.